Hey Dethroners, welcome back to another episode of the Dethroning Your Inner Critic YouTube channel. I am Joanna Kleinman, psychotherapist and CEO of the Dethroning Your Inner Critic coaching company. And today I want to talk to you about the science behind how to use your brain to manifest your life. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I used to think that the whole concept of manifestation was total BS. I thought it was a lot of new age and magical thinking. I really didn't pay much attention to the law of attraction and to the concept of manifesting your life for most of my adult life. I had nothing to do with it. But what I did pay attention to for most of my life, beginning at the age of 9 years old, is how to shift the paradigm from which you see yourself and your life. Now, I was very fortunate that I had parents who introduced me to a lot of these concepts of really rewiring your thinking. That's not what they called it back then, but it really was changing the lens through which you saw a lot of things. And so now I look back and I can see that that was really the start of manifestation. That was really the start of using the law of attraction. That was actually cultivating brain plasticity and the concepts of neuroscience. But I didn't know back then. Okay. But what I did know early on in my life was that when I did my own work to change the lens through which I saw myself and my life, it changed the reality that I was living in. It changed the quality of my relationships. It changed the way I saw myself. It changed what I believed was possible for me and possible for my life. And so I didn't even know that that had to do with manifesting and neuroplasticity. Okay. And that's really what I want to talk about today, because there is science that is behind tuning into your intuition, manifesting what you want. It actually all begins with cultivating an ongoing practice of self-awareness and repeating certain actions in your life over and over and over. And just those two things, self-awareness and taking repetitive action, has formed the life that I'm living today. And if I didn't know how to consciously redirect my mind and consciously take different action, I can assure you I would not be living anywhere near the life that I'm living today. So when I was 19, I had a really profound revelation. I was standing on the side of a mountain, paralyzed with fear, hooked up to all of this safety gear, about to jump off. And I had this profound revelation, and it was really in one thought. And the thought was, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck if you're afraid? And that single thought really laid the foundation for my life, for all the work that I offer to the world. Because when you know how to override your fear, your doubt, your frustration, your resentment, your shame, your guilt, your jealousy, when you know how to override that and rewire your brain for your inner transformation and for your future success, it really does change the life that gets laid out before you. So the science behind all of this is really learning how to leverage your brain power, because you can retrain your mind to focus on different things that will have you taking consistent and inspired action that's going to create a better life for yourself. See, what we know now is that our brain changes and grows throughout our whole life. And since our brain is always growing, our life is always changing depending on what's happening inside of our brain. So how our life unfolds is really dependent on what we're doing. What actions are we taking? And our actions are dependent on our emotions that we're experiencing. Now, we take different actions when we feel joy and inspiration and gratitude than the actions that we take when we're feeling fear and frustration and shame and doubt and jealousy and resentment. So every negative thought that we have really is connected to our survival mechanism, that primitive part of our brain, okay? Because remember, our brain has really one function only, and that is keeping us alive. How do we survive in this world? Now, it used to be that we just needed to survive physically. In today's world, our brain is really focused on how do we survive emotionally, okay? Your brain continues to react from that basic survival. So many of your thoughts and beliefs and many of your painful emotions actually are connected to this survival mechanism. We're hardwired for a need to be liked and valued and wanted and accepted by other people. Now, think about this back in caveman times, right? If we weren't accepted by the tribe, we died. So really, if I have to sum up all the work that I do in the world, this podcast, my book, my mind method, my Mastering Your Mind program, it really all comes down to what can you do with your brain to make you thrive instead of just being in survival mode? And that is particularly relevant in the areas of your life that are the most important to you. So the bottom line is that we really need to understand how to prime our brain to thrive. Otherwise, we're just going to be surviving. And so many people are blind to this idea that they are operating in their lives from their survival brain. I mean, I know most people, right? If you're really not understanding how to use your brain, how to use your mind, which is the most powerful tool you'll ever have access to. If you're not understanding how to use it, it's running you and it's just in survival brain. So let's talk about the first piece of the science behind manifestation. Okay. So one of the most important practices that you can implement for your life is visualization. So visualization allows you to see and feel your future self and your future life ahead of time. Now, why is that important? Because if you leave your brain to its own automatic devices, all it cares about is being accepted and valued and worthy and good enough for other people. Okay? So that's our default setting. And we need to train our brain to focus on opportunities that come across our path that are going to help us to achieve our dreams, right? Because we all have a lot of dreams for ourselves and for our life. But if we are stuck in, I need to be accepted, I need to be valued, I need to have other people think that I'm good enough, I need to make sure that no one judges me, or I don't fail, or I don't appear unworthy to someone, it's very hard to focus on opportunities that are going to move your life forward in the direction of your dreams. Okay. Now, you, I know, want more out of life than just being an automatic reaction to your triggers. And we're triggered a lot. We're triggered when life doesn't go the way we want it to go. We're triggered when we even imagine other people judging us or not wanting us, right? Or not wanting what we have to offer. So your brain needs something to focus on. And you actually have a choice on what your brain is going to focus on. Either it's going to focus on autopilot, that default focus, which is more of the same, needing to make sure that you control a lot of things that you don't have any control over, or your brain can focus on intentional and repetitive thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Now, emotions play a huge role in this, okay? So since our survival brain is really all about seeking out pleasure and avoiding pain, okay? We have a vision for what we want our life to be. And when we can really tune into that vision in our mind, and we can use our minds to drum up the feeling that makes us feel so good, so excited, so alive, so full of vitality and effervescence when we imagine living that life, being our future self. We can actually cultivate that experience, that incredible feeling right now. But if we're in default mode, which is where most people are, we're automatically going to focus on what we don't want in our lives and what we feel frustrated by and what makes us feel anxious and what makes us feel drained and what makes us feel overwhelmed. So if you know how to intentionally give yourself the space and the room to feel those intense emotions of actually manifesting that dream, it's those emotions, the emotions of joy and excitement and that feeling that you're alive. Those are the emotions that are going to give you the motivation to push through that discomfort that's going to show up, the fear, the risk that comes with taking actions towards your dreams. Because let's face it, you can't have your dream life if you're not willing to face your discomfort head on. You have to make room for that. You have to make space for that. If you want great relationships, you have to risk feeling vulnerable. You have to risk being rejected. You have to risk criticism. You have to risk hearing things about yourself that you might not want to hear. If you want success in your business or your career, you have to be willing to take risks. You have to be willing to speak up at the meeting when you're terrified that you're going to sound stupid or you're going to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. You're going to need to learn how to do new things that are way outside of your comfort zone. If you want great health, right, you're going to have to resist the urge to indulge in those unhealthy urges like skipping the workouts or, eating the whole bag of chips. And that can be uncomfortable. So manifesting your life is about consciously and repeatedly aligning your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, and your actions with a desired result. Now, the science behind this is when you take consistent action over and over and over again that's in alignment with what you want, you're going to create new experiences as a result of those actions. Now, the one thing I've learned through my own journey of manifesting my dreams is that if you aren't learning how to unhook yourself from your fear and your doubt and your worst case scenarios and your frustrations and the times where you're just sure it's not going to work out for you and you're wallowing in those emotions, it's not that you won't be able to create the life that you want, but you're going to struggle and suffer along the way. And that is heartbreaking because you're not going to be enjoying the one and only life that you're living. Because manifesting dreams takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of failures, and it takes a lot of falling on your face. So the reason why this is so hard is because there's that hard wiring. We focus on those potential dangers, right? Now, the brain's focus on those potential dangers is, of course, to hopefully try and prevent them from happening, but that's not possible. So we focus way more on what could go wrong and what could not work out for us than we focus on what could go right and what could be possible and what could work out for us, right? So it takes very conscious attention to focus on that joy and excitement. It takes conscious attention to lean into the thought, what if I really can create this? Right? Instead of automatically focusing on, well, what if I can't? Okay. Now, when we focus intentionally on what if I really can create this life, those thoughts change your body's chemistry. Okay. When you're focused on the excitement and the joy of actually creating that life and what it would be like to be living that life, whatever it is, getting that promotion, creating that business, having that relationship, right? Getting your marriage to a completely different level. When you're focused there, you're actually aligning your brain, your heart, and your gut to keep you focused on what you want. And the more that you focus on what you want and you feel the power of those emotions, the more motivation you have to keep going and to keep taking the next action towards that vision of that life and that future self, no matter what happens. Now, that requires a lot of patience and a lot of trust. Okay, because changing the chemicals in your brain and changing the old habits and patterns of thoughts that you have likely had for your whole life takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of intentional work, especially when you're not seeing the results yet in real time. Okay, but if you keep doing this over and over and over again, eventually you're going to start seeing those new habits of thoughts and beliefs and behaviors start to take shape. You have to keep going when you're seeing nothing changing, because it'll be nothing for a long time. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you'll notice, wow, I'm actually different. You'll handle something that comes across your lap differently than you would have handled it before. Or you'll notice that something that a year ago would have driven you bananas, right, is really not upsetting you in the way that it used to. You'll start noticing new opportunities that seem to come from out of the blue. So you start to see that evidence that you're changing and you're growing and your life is starting to shift. And that's when you're training your mind to pay more attention, to notice those new opportunities that can bring you and your life closer to what you want it to be. You're retraining your brain, which is really rewiring new pathways in your brain to pay attention to what's a match for the life that you really want, instead of paying attention to the things that are a match for what you don't want. See, that's where our automatic mind is hardwired to pay attention to the danger. So training your brain to notice what makes you feel a sense of purpose, what makes you feel a sense of deep fulfillment, that takes time. Now, there's 4 steps for this. Now, These steps are outlined in my book. They're outlined in the mind method that I created, but I'm going to really simplify it here. Okay. Now, the very first step is that self-awareness. You have to be aware of what you're automatically focusing on. What are the thoughts? What are the beliefs that you're automatically focusing on? Okay. What are these automatic thoughts and beliefs that keep drumming up the same fear, the same doubt, the same scarcity, the same worry? Because all of those emotions pretend to serve a purpose. Okay. That purpose is to try to predict and control what the future has in store, to prevent the unpleasant surprises or setbacks, and to try to control the outcome so you don't fail and you don't fall flat on your face and no one judges you and you don't get rejected. But the problem is, it doesn't work. Thinking about all those things that could go wrong doesn't make life any more predictable. So you have to train your brain to stay in the unpredictability of life, to not have to know how it's all going to go. Now, I believe the number one way to practice self-awareness is journaling. When you have a journaling practice, you're actually carving out space for that deep soul searching to really discover what lies underneath your fear and doubt. You get to understand on a deeper level, what am I really afraid of? And how long have I had this fear? And it's really an opportunity for you to tune into your heart and to ask yourself some deep questions like, why do I really want this thing? Now, the second step is to pay close attention to your behaviors, because all of your behaviors are really stemming from your emotions. So if you pay attention to your behaviors, you might be able to understand more of why you're engaging in behaviors that are sabotaging you from having the life that you really want, and why you're not engaging in behaviors that could bring you closer to the life that you want. Now, this is where you can really understand what emotions are holding you back and what are your thoughts that are creating these emotions. Because interestingly enough, many people are actually more afraid of getting these extraordinary results than in the failure. You know, failure seems familiar. It seems predictable. It's actually really unknown when we're really looking at what our life could possibly be. That can be a little bit more overwhelming than staying in the familiar life that you are already living. So the third step, this is a really crucial step that a lot of people don't talk about, is understanding the root cause of why you continue to automatically have the same thoughts and emotions that you do. Now, remember I said it all goes back to survival. So each one of us has, really, we could say, a core central issue that we've been spending our entire lives trying to protect ourselves from. Now, I can't tell you how much this changes everything about manifesting your life when you understand that it all goes back to this one core issue, this one core wound. Now, when you know what that issue is and why it's etched in your brain, and all of the things that you're automatically doing to keep yourself protected from this one core issue, you're going to see how this core issue is actually running your life, how it's interfering with your relationships, how it's creating your frustration and your upset, how it's fueling the parts of your life that continue to stir up your emotional pain. You're going to start to see why you do the things you do and why you don't do the things that you don't do. And the fourth step is to design your future by letting your future self and your future life guide your current thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. So I have to make space and room for this every single day. This is what I practice with my clients. Not just having a vision board, but also having an accomplishment board, which is basically a record of all the things that we've already manifested in our life. The accomplishment board is just as important as a vision board, because once you see that you've actually already manifested things in your life, starting from your brain, you can see evidence that the neuroscience behind manifesting your dreams is actually a real thing. It's not woo-woo. It's real science. Because when you can see that you've manifested already, you can start to see that there are so many puzzle pieces that had to come together to make certain parts of your life a reality, right? Like maybe thinking about how you met your spouse or your significant other. You had a thought at some point that someday I'm going to find my life partner. Someday, maybe I'm going to have kids. And now here they are. Or at some point, your career was just an idea in your mind, right? Or you started out your career at one level and now you're at a whole different level. So you can really start to see the power that you already have in making things happen. And that changes your experience of your own power. Now, this is when you start trusting that you're actually worthy of having the life that you want. And this is how you stop settling for your current circumstances that are not fulfilling for you. But if you are too scared to step into the unknown, you'll settle for the life that's not really fulfilling you. Right? So if you really start taking direction from your future life, this is how you start reaching for something more. This is how you start to realize that there might be things that you've been accepting that are no longer a match for who you are and the life that you want for yourself. There might be relationships that are no longer a fit. There might be careers that are no longer a fit. There might be habits that are no longer a fit, but you watch yourself changing right before your eyes because you're shifting your experience of what you're really capable of creating in your life, because you realize what you truly deserve and you stop accepting circumstances that aren't a match for what you deserve. This is why that inner work is so important, because manifesting is a lot about changing your relationship with yourself and your relationship with what you believe you deserve in your life. If you're not aware of your own value and what you deserve in your life, you won't be able to attract into your life something that's a greater value or even an equal value, because we don't attract what we want. We attract who we already are. That's really important. So when you see your value and your worthiness independently of your accomplishments or what other people might think of you, or independent of the comparisons that we tend to make about what our life is and what we think it should be. When we really see our value independently of anything outside of ourselves, that's a fundamentally different relationship you're having with yourself. And that's when your brain will actually start finding evidence to match that value. That's when you're no longer going to need to make sure that other people don't judge you, they don't leave you. That's when you let go of trying to find your value by controlling other people's thoughts and opinions of you. That's the game changer for so many people, because that's when we can take more risks. We can step outside of our comfort zone. We can put ourselves out there. You can get on social media with your message. You can speak up at that business meeting. You can find the love of your life. When we start taking more risks, we're able to discover what our true purpose is in life. Now, I've seen this over and over and over. Women who get in touch with their purpose because they're no longer identifying with that old identity, that old person that they once were. They're starting to see what they really have to offer to the world because they're no longer listening to that voice of self-doubt that convinces you that you're not enough and you don't have what it takes to make your dreams a reality. So once you're no longer believing that you are your automatic mind, you can then start asking yourself questions like, is this circumstance what I really want in my life? And if so, why do I want it? And instead of letting your fear mind answer, you can let your heart and your intuition answer. Now, when I explore these questions with my clients, it can be a little scary to discover that you've been holding on to something in your life that's no longer a fit, a job title, a career path, a relationship, a city where you live. Change is scary because remember, our brain doesn't want us to face the unknown. It only seeks out predictability. That's the hard wiring we're fighting against when we're committed to living our most inspired and abundant life. So it comes down to how badly do you want it? Are you really tuned into that emotion of wanting it so badly? You need to want that life so badly that you'll keep going when your old survival identity starts screaming at you that this is all a mistake and you should just give up and it's never going to happen for you. Because I know about this all too well. It's really hard to stay in action when you're not seeing the results and it looks like nothing's happening, nothing's manifesting. So if you're truly using your intuition and you're not making that choices from that fear and scarcity, you will see results eventually. But you have to stay in trust and patience. And you've got to keep going when you're climbing the mountain and you can't see how far it is up until the top. It's a very uncomfortable place to be. And that's where most people give up. Right? When you are most vulnerable to succumb to that survival brain, that's your inner critic self. You have to keep your focus on what do I really want here? And that's how you're training your brain to keep focusing on the opportunities, the relationships, the experiences that are going to align with what you want. And you keep taking actions towards that opportunity, which then opens the door for the next opportunity. Now, there have been plenty of times where I didn't yet see the door to the next opportunity, right? And that's when I'm vulnerable to get sucked back into that automatic mind. That's when all the worst case scenarios come flooding in and the old self-doubt comes flooding in, right? That's when you feel like giving up, when it feels like it's not going to happen. Now, that's the difference between someone that will manifest and someone that will continue along the path, but they're not actually going to manifest what they want. Okay. We do have the power to rewire our brain, but we're never going to undo the automatic hardwiring that's already in our brain. So we have to learn how to override that hardwiring by repeating new thoughts, repeating new beliefs, repeating new behaviors with an emotional intensity that's connected to the future we're designing. That energy has to come from our future vision and our future self. It's very different energy than the energy that comes from our automatic self. And it comes from getting to the root of your current beliefs, because we all have beliefs that we're not even aware of. And those are the beliefs that have all the power, the ones you're not aware of, right? When you can understand what's hidden underneath those sabotaging beliefs, you start to see something that was once completely blind to you. So for example, a belief that was once in my blind spot was it's just not going to happen for me. So Now, like me, you might have collected a lot of evidence over the years that makes that belief seem really true for you. But when you do the work of starting to question the evidence that you've been unconsciously collecting for all these years, you might be able to start to see the flip side of that belief. And the flip side of that belief is, what if it actually can happen for me? And we have to be willing to entertain both sides of that, because it's in our actions that we're going to make something happen. But your actions might take you somewhere that aren't exactly a match for your vision, right? Your vision might come, it might lead you to a completely different vision, right? But having the belief, the more actions I take that are in alignment with my future self and my future life, the more we can just keep letting go of those attachments and those demands and those ideal pictures. And we can just keep taking the next inspired action. And the more I do that, the more my life continues to grow and change and evolve into the most unexpected places. And now I don't need my life to be an exact match for my vision. I'll keep taking inspired action towards my vision, but if it never gets exactly where my vision is, it doesn't really matter, because I've already manifested so many extraordinary things that I never knew I could. And that's what I want for you. That's what I'm committed to having people understand. The most important way to use our brain is to be in awe of our lives right now, to be present to gratitude and love and connection and joy now, not waiting until we've reached our ideal life. That's the paradox. When we can tune into those emotions now, those are the emotions that pull that life towards us. So the key to getting there is you have to want to change yourself and your life so badly that you're willing to take those actions that are going to get you there. Okay? Because this is the shift in energy, that feeling around whatever you're wanting to manifest. That's what's going to get you there. So every single day, I have to intentionally plug myself into a new mind. Because when I wake up, my first thoughts are from my autopilot brain. So it's some version of, what do I have to do today? And, what's not working? And where am I still not where I want to be? And so I can't let that brain govern my life. So I have to start doing the practices that are going to override my automatic mind. Now, I do that with 2 practices, and I teach my clients to do this too. The first practice is I dump out my thoughts and beliefs into a journal. I just dump my automatic mind out into a journal. Now, that's a great practice, because when you do that, you'll see that you're never really having any new thoughts. Even if there are new circumstances that are creating those thoughts are nothing new. You're really never ever having brand new thoughts. It's just the same regurgitated thought you've had. You had it yesterday. You had it the month before. You had it last year. You had it the year before that. You had it 5 years before that, right? The next practice is I write down everything I'm grateful for. And even if I'm repeating the same things I'm grateful for, those 2 practices alone are game changers, because those practices change your energy by changing the emotions that you're tuning into. Now, the other important thing that I do, and this is at night before I go to bed, and I teach my clients to do this too, I read my vision every night. So in your mind, When you go through this process of creating a vision and visualizing it, allowing that wave of gratitude and excitement that's associated with that life happening, you can feel that energy filling up in your body. Now, your brain can't tell the difference between your imagination and your real life. So the more that you get in touch with that vision and embody those emotions from visualizing that future, the more you train your brain to push through the discomfort to take the actions to get you that life. And if you're embodying gratitude for the life that you're currently living, trusting the universe to guide you towards your vision, and feeling that sense of being proud of yourself and actually really loving yourself because you can watch yourself becoming a different person, you're releasing the good feeling chemicals in your brain instead of the stress chemicals that are released when you're stuck in that fear, that doubt, that worst case scenario mind, which remember is never going anywhere. So basically, love, gratitude, those emotions cannot coexist with the emotions, fear and shame and sadness and anger. So the more that you really consciously direct your brain into those emotions of gratitude and love and joy, right? Those emotions create those feel-good hormones. And the less that you are living in those chemicals that are associated with your survival brain, which is really just fight, flight, freeze. Now, when we are focused on scarcity, when we're focused on what isn't good enough, where we're not good enough, what we don't want in our lives, what we wish we wanted in our lives, we're in scarcity. And when we're in scarcity, we're in fight, flight, freeze. So just visualizing that future and feeling that wave of emotion that comes from being so grateful for visualizing that life, even if it hasn't happened yet, it changes the chemical balance in your body. Now, my vision has changed many times over the years. And the thing about writing down a vision or even creating a vision board is that those things are not suddenly going to appear in your life. But when you're consciously focused on your vision on a daily basis, you're training your brain to continue to pay attention to the opportunities, to the people, to the relationships that moves you toward that vision. Now, I can't even count how many things have manifested in my life because of a million tiny actions that I took that at some point moved my reality from dream to actual reality, right? And you can look at things in your life, all of the big things, getting married, becoming a mom, right? Maybe creating your career. Certainly for me, writing my best-selling book, working with thousands of people, leading retreats, that all started with a vision. And I had absolutely no clue how to have it become a reality. And by the way, that vision, from vision to reality, took many, many, many years. Okay. But when we stop hustling and grinding and trying to force outcomes, and instead we tune into trusting the divine, trusting the universe, we trusting that all we ever have to do is take the next inspired action. And we keep doing that over and over and over. Your life starts to take on what I can describe as just a magical quality. You'll get to the point where you're blowing your own mind. Sometimes you might even be questioning your sanity because you'll ask yourself, how did I get here? And there will be too many stories, too many synchronicities, too many random events that led you to where you are. So you can't even be 100% sure how you got here. But you're clear that you manifested something from nothing. And that is an indescribable feeling. And that's the feeling that you then take with you into the next chapter of your life and the next thing that you're manifesting and the next thing that you're creating. So if you haven't taken my inner critic assessment yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Thousands of people have already taken it. It's free. After years of research, I narrowed down 5 different inner critics that live in our minds. And this assessment is going to give you a breakdown of which of the 5 inner critics are most ruling your life and how they're getting in your way of manifesting what it is that you want. You'll also get to see how not only are they impacting you, but they're impacting the people that matter to you the most. It only takes a few minutes. It's free. So go to innercriticassessment.com, and thanks for tuning in today.